County Republican Convention. It's going to be sometime in April. Have they decided that yet? The last email I got, I don't know if it had a date on it. So I know we've discussed some, but they were. So just keep an eye on that, as well as the State Republican Convention. This is when new party leadership will be elected. If you were a delegate at the county or state conventions, this is part of fulfilling your whatever your requirements and your obligations. And so we'd encourage you, because these are important elections. I think we have seen that that the importance of having good party leadership. Okay, so maybe 12th. Yeah, I know there's 12th, and there's like one about 2 weeks later they discussed. So okay, but so just keep an eye out for that, and we'll keep in the loop. Jen. And then the state convention's May 17th. I should have got, let's have Drew Chamberlain get off for prayer. I have a couple more things to add, and then we'll turn it over to Peter. Let's move this a little closer.
Our Father in heaven, we're grateful to be here tonight. We're grateful for good patriots that can try to give us good government. Bless us, please bless us with your spirit and the things that we do. We can choose the right. And we're thankful for this great country that we live in. And this we pray in the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
So I wanted to invite Drew to pray, because I was going to ask you to offer your prayers, because tomorrow the Supreme Court will be considering whether it will hear, and I'm not sure of just exactly details because this work is a little from what I understand, but Phil Lyman's case on overturning SB 54. I think I saw a little preview of Peter's slide, and he has about SB 54 and everything. But SB 54, just a quick, is the system that allows people to go around our caucus convention system. I call SB 54 the Incumbent Protection Act of 2014. It allows people to basically ignore the will of delegates and allows some people who have lots of money to win elections. Without SB 54, Phil Lyman would be your governor right now. Frank Mylar, or hopefully would be your Attorney General. Trent Staggs would be your U.S. Senator. Man, what a great thing that would have been. I almost get tingly just thinking about that. But unfortunately, that's the case. But hopefully, Phil Lyman. So I'd ask before in your nightly prayers and your prayers in the morning when you choose to pray that for wisdom for our Supreme Court justices as they make this important decision. So that being said, anything I forgot to add here to our board? I think I did, but thank you, Pastor Beckel. But thank you, and thank you for helping their staff back there to help. That has been awesome, and I really appreciate it once again. Having this, hopefully one day we'll see this completely filled. Just make sure we clean up once again. We want the old Boy Scout motto of leave it better than how we found it. Leave no trace. So that being said, tonight as we begin the legislative session, comes up on January 21st. January 20th, we finally get rid of Joe Biden. And that should be a celebration. But on the 21st begins the Utah legislative session. And as I always say with the Utah legislative session, it's already occurred. Spencer Cox and them had a private ceremony on Monday for some reason, and then had their public ceremony on Wednesday. So that happened. But so the legislative sessions began on the 21st. I always tell everyone it goes for 45 days and goes that until March 7th. Remember my dates right here. And I always say that during those 45 days that they're in sessions, make sure you hold on to your copy of your constitutions and your pocketbook, because both are in danger during that time. But if we do things right and follow what Peter's going to teach us tonight, we'll be a lot safer. And Peter's done a lot of work at legislature. Did you say you've been up there for like 5 years as a citizen lobbyist? Now not paid, because that's one of the things at the legislature I always joke about when I first went there, is used to be able to see all the lobbyists. I always thought like the pit of vipers or something that was right there, right outside the house doors. But these are people getting paid good money to influence your legislature. Peter, bless his heart, did it voluntarily, because he's a good man. And I've had the privilege of working with Peter in a number of organizations, and we served on the State Central Committee together as the Republican Party. We now currently serve on the board of Grassroots. And I also have Drew here, so I appreciate him being here as well. But turn the time over to Peter for this presentation. Thank you.
I am so excited I can hardly stand it. This is one of my favorite subjects, and I'm thrilled to get a chance to share it with some people. If any of you feel a little distant, don't be afraid. We're happy to have you up close. But if you're scared of me, stay back. I might get you involved in something you would not otherwise have gotten involved in. So as you can see, the title of our presentation tonight is How to Be a Citizen Lobbyist. The point is, a citizen lobbyist is not paid. You're just a citizen. But I was stunned. One day, I went up to the Capitol. I was mad at Clinton or something. I wanted him impeached. I went up to the Capitol, and I was going to protest. And there were about 60 of us there milling around in the floor of the state Capitol. And this guy came down to me. He had been up in the balcony overlooking the rotunda, and he came down to me and he picked me and he said, "Why are you here?" I said, "Well, I want to make a difference. We've got to make a change here. Things are awful." And he said, "You want to really make a change?" Because he knew that I couldn't have much impact on national politics. I said, "Well, yeah, I really want to make a change. We'll come back tomorrow. I'll see you here tomorrow, 8 o'clock, meet me in the cafeteria, and I'll show you how this is done." So I came back the next day, and we went to committee meetings, and we attended general sessions, and we spoke with legislators. And I said, "Man, I might actually have some influence this way." So he said, "Come back the next day." And I came back the next day. I was retired, and so I could do that. And after a while, I just could never leave until the session was over. And during the 5 years that I did that, every day of every session for 5 years, I got back and I decided I wasn't going to do it anymore. But during that time, I got myself elected a member of the Davis School Board. What the heck? Are you kidding me? The year before, right after I got back from a mission to Argentina, I was a substitute teacher in the Davis School District. And the next year, decided to run for office, and I won. So for 4 years, I'm a member of the Davis School Board, and I supervise all the teachers and principals and everybody, along with 6 other members of the board. Kind of a shock to their system to see me do that. And of course, then the teachers union made sure that didn't happen again when it came re-election time. They told plenty of lies and shared plenty of money to make sure that that rogue was off the school board. Well, it all started that day with Ron Mortensen up at the Capitol, and he said, "You want to make a real difference?" Well, I got to tell you, I was kind of surprised how much of a difference I really could make. It was a lot. So let's go to the next slide and see what we got there. First, I want to make sure you understand what lobbying is. We got a definition here. It's the practice of influencing decisions made by government. It includes all attempts to influence legislators and other officials. A lobbyist is a person who tries to influence legislators on behalf of a special interest. I consider myself to have a special. Oh, I think I am a special interest. I'm more special than any of those special interests that have all the money. I'm the one this country was created for. the citizens. And so whether I'm a special interest or not, I'm doing it on behalf of me and a whole bunch of other people I think like me. Now, Utah law does define a little bit more about lobbying, and it regulates lobbying. So lobbyists have to register at the lieutenant governor's office. So did I dutifully march up to the lieutenant governor's office and register? Ain't no way. I'm doing it on my own. I'm not representing somebody else, and I am not getting paid. So I don't have to register, and neither do you. If you decide you want to take some action that a lobbyist would take it. Everything except maybe for donating boatloads of money to candidates. You don't have to do that. But I just want you to know that's what lobbying is. Other lobbyists have to register. You don't. Next slide, please. There are certain things that we are not allowed to do, even though we're unpaid lobbyists. It is illegal in Utah to influence a legislator's vote by communicating with the legislator's employer. You can't go to his boss and say, you got to fire this guy. He didn't vote the way he should. Against the law. Don't do that. Okay? You also cannot intentionally communicate false information to them. By the way, one of the great powers that you have as a lobbyist is to give legislators information they may not have. There's no way they can know everything about every bill they're going to vote on. So lobbyists spend a lot of money, usually, the paid lobbyists, to produce materials to give to legislators so that they know a lot of information about a bill. Do they follow this law about intentionally communicating false information? I don't know. You shouldn't do it. All you have to do is tell them the truth. That's what they need to hear, and you're perfectly authorized to do that. We also cannot, during the legislative session, which starts in just a few days, you cannot either donate to a candidate, a future candidate, nor can you promise to donate during the legislative session. Do that before the session starts. Do it after the session's over, but don't get yourself caught in a trick by, oh, hi, Bev. I think we got it made. Yeah, we're covered. Thank you. My wife made a run clear from Farmington just to bring me a power cord I didn't need. She's so good. Anyway, so don't make a donation nor promise to make a donation. That's against the law. Next slide, please. Okay, let's make sure you understand as a lobbyist, especially as just a citizen lobbyist, why do you have influence? Well, there's several reasons why you have influence. First of all, you represent a lot of citizens in this organization. Believe me, when legislators hear that you're a part of the Davis County Conservatives, their ears perk up. We have meetings twice a month. We talk to people. We get the word out. We have a newsletter. I mean, they're not going to mess with us too much because we'll tell on them. So if they know that you're there and you're a member of Davis County Conservatives, all of a sudden you have more power than one person. You have the power of, I don't know, 500 or 1,000 people. A lot of citizens do care, but the difference is we show up. You showed up here tonight. If you go up to the Capitol, which you are welcome to do not be afraid to go up there during the legislative session. When they see you show up at the Capitol, they pay a lot of attention. I even suggest you contact them. Let them know, I'm here. Would you like to talk to your representative? They might. Yes?
So my hesitancy is, I don't know their schedules, I don't know if I'm interrupting, I don't know, how do you coordinate?
That's important. I'm glad you asked that question. And you just have to remember the relationship. You're the boss. They're the employee. They respond to your schedule. So you go up there anytime you feel like it, and anytime you want, you send them a text message or send a note in to the floor of the House or the Senate. Tell them you'd like to talk to them. They'll come out when they can, if they will. The Senate never will. But in the House of Representatives, usually they will. They'll come right out the back doors of the main floor and they'll call out your name. I got a note from so-and-so. Where are you? Even if they don't know you. So just remember, you're the boss, and they may have meetings that they're in. Okay. You got a text message? I'm one of your constituents. And by the way, that's very important. When you're lobbying, if you're talking to your representative or your senator, tell them you are their constituent. They'll jump through their hat to come see you. The others will probably ignore you for a while until they discover that you've got the ear of the rest of Davis County. And now all the representatives from Davis County will pay more attention to you because they know that you belong to Davis County conservatives. So I'm glad you asked the question. Don't be afraid of their schedule. Or look on the calendar. I'm going to show you how to look at the legislative calendar, find out what committee meeting they're in. Show up a little early. And when they come in, walk right up to their desk and say, hi, I'm so-and-so from Davis County. I'm your constituent. What you going to do today? And you'll have their attention. They'll want to know your name, and you'll have some influence that way. Another thing is that we're organized, and because they recognize that we are organized, they recognize we're going to have influence because we'll take organized action that could make them look good if they vote with us, could make them look bad if they don't. They want to look good, and so the fact that we're organized will help. And also, we have good ideas. They can use these good ideas in their debate. If they are the sponsor of a bill, they're going to have to stand up in front of the committee, present the bill, explain why it's good, and answer a lot of questions about it. If you give them information, that will be helpful. Even if they're not the sponsor of a bill, they're trying to figure out, should I vote for this bill or not? And if you give them some information that they didn't have from the sponsor of the bill, then they will appreciate that. And all of a sudden, you'll become valuable to them because you provide them some information that they didn't have otherwise. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Just so that you know, our legislature is made up of 29 senators. Originally, that was one for each county, but then they've rearranged the boundaries so that they have equal people that they represent. But 29 senators. Within the Senate, there are 11 standing committees. These are committees that meet every legislative session, and they consider a boatload of bills before they go to the floor for a final vote. So if they don't pass the committee, they don't pass. They don't go to the floor. So the committee is an important place, and there are 11 different standing committees. Now, in the House of Representatives, there are 75 members of the House of Representatives, and they are divided into 14 standing committees. Again, bills are sent to the committee to be considered before they send them to the floor of the House. Now, there are some other committees that are a little bit weird. Let me talk to you about appropriations committees. There's a mighty, powerful executive appropriations committee. They own the state. No kidding. They decide where the money goes. That one committee is responsible for putting together the final budget that the House and the Senate will vote on the last day of the session usually and give it the okay. But these guys on executive appropriations, they have a lot of say about that. If you know any of those members of the Executive Appropriations Committee, stay in close touch with them because they'd have a lot of influence on what gets priority and what doesn't. Please.
Sorry, I don't want to interrupt. But
No, this is fine.
so how are these committees formed? Do I select, oh, I want this one? Like, how do I get myself?
Yeah, they get to request which committee they get assigned to, but the Speaker of the House makes the assignments for the House, and the President of the Senate makes the assignments for the Senate.
And then who makes the appropriation committee?
Same.
Same thing?
Yeah, it's the Speaker of the House and the President of the Senate. So that's why everybody wants to please the Speaker of the House so they get a good committee assignment. Yeah. Yeah, what could go wrong? Right, good point. Now, there's another thing. You notice that I didn't talk about the 8 appropriations subcommittees. Appropriations subcommittees are rather unique. Unique in one way that there's only 8 of them. They have different focuses. One is government operations, you'll have one for natural resources, one for education, one for law enforcement, and so forth. So you get 8 executive appropriations committees. They put the budget together for their area, for their specialized area. And so that committee also, those subcommittees, are pretty important because they send, by a certain deadline, they send their piece of the budget up to the Executive Appropriations Committee. And the Executive Appropriations Committee decides how they're going to adjust everything. They draw a line, everything above the line gets funded, everything below the line does not. That's the Executive Appropriations makes that cut. But all the subcommittees put the pieces together the way they think they should be. Appropriations, they deal with the money. The other weird thing about appropriations, they consist of members of the House and the Senate in the same committee. So you get senators and representatives on one committee trying to work together, and they sometimes don't get along exactly. Yes, Drew?
I want to say that's a cordless mic, if you want to hold that.
Oh, wouldn't that be nice? Think what I could do. I wouldn't have to yell so loud. Yeah, okay, thank you. The appropriations subcommittees are joint committees of the House and Senate, whereas the others, there are Senate committees and then there are House standing committees. Yes, please.
Can I be on both? So if I'm a senator, would I be in a standing committee and also an appropriations?
Every member of the House and Senate belongs to at least one appropriations subcommittee or the Executive Appropriations Committee. They belong to, everybody gets a say in spending. It's just a question of where.
Or representatives across the board.
Belong to at least one appropriations committee or subcommittee, yes. Yes.
Can I give you the names that I looked it up here of executive?
Oh, okay. Executive Appropriations. Here we go, the power brokers.
Jerry Stevenson,
Davis County.
Val Peterson, Cash, Scott Sandel, Walt Brooks, Stuart Adams, Kirk
Davis
Millimore.
County.
I think you have all of leadership, all of their leadership is there. Liz Escamilla, Karen Kwan, Mike McKell, the governor's brother-in-law, Jen Plum, Kathleen Reed, Chris Wilson, Jennifer Daly Robles, Sarah Hayes, Carrie Lisenby, Jefferson Moss,
Davis County.
Angela Romero, Mike Schultz, who's Kirkland Bar Davis, Casey Snyder.
So we have 4 people from Davis County that are on executive appropriations. Good people to stay in touch with and to let them know what our priorities are. Any questions about committees? Okay, let's go to the next slide. Okay, quickly how a bill becomes a law. You probably already know this, so we'll go through it quickly. You have to have a member of the House or Senate be a sponsor of a bill in order for it to be placed in for consideration. So you have a bill sponsor, and then you also have the Rules Committee. The bill is drafted by legislative helpers that help the legislator draft his bill. But then it goes to the Rules Committee. The Rules Committee also is a very powerful committee. Basically, they're supposed to decide, is this bill really ready for prime time? Is it drafted correctly? Does it say the words we want it to say? But what they really do is, we don't like this bill. We're never bringing that to the light of day. And so the Rules Committee can tank a bill. But most of the time, they just routinely agree to let it go and into committee and go through the consideration process. It goes then to the standing committee of the first house where the sponsor resides. It gets considered there and then they vote on it. If a majority of committee members vote in favor of that bill, it goes on to the floor of that house. If it started in the House of Representatives, it'll go to the floor of the House of Representatives. And so it goes to floor debate and vote. Now in Utah, the Constitution requires that every bill be read 3 times just to make darn sure all those legislators know what it is they're voting on. So in the House of Representatives, they read the title of it twice and then they debate it and vote on it once. But in the Senate, they read the title once, and then they read the title and debate it and vote on it second time. Then they bring it back a day later and they debate it and vote on it again in case anybody changed their mind. So these things get pretty thorough consideration on the floor debate and vote. You see up on the right, we have a floor sponsor. Yes, please, Jen.
So if the Constitution requires that they read the bill and they have not read the bill,
Oh, it doesn't mean read through the bill. It means read the title of the bill out loud on the floor.
You want them to actually read the bill before they vote on it?
how's the logic?
I must say, in many cases, we're lucky in Utah. In many cases, many legislators actually do read the bills. Because they're relatively small, they at least read what is called the long title. And I'll show you what that looks like. I hope I will show you what that looks like. Anyway, they can read at least the long title of the bill, which gives a little synopsis of what it does and so forth.
And they read it 3 times through the Senate, not through the House.
Through the Senate, they actually debate it twice and vote on it
They
twice.
have to vote, they take,
The third vote is the one that finally
but in the
counts.
House, they vote on it.
In the House, they only do it once.
In the House, they only read the title twice, and then the third reading is the debate and the vote, which they do only once. Yes.
So, sorry, I'm very ignorant to these things. So the Rules Committee and the Standing Committee, like you said, the Rules Committee can tank it. Is that one of those subcommittees you mentioned on the slide before?
No, I failed to mention the Rules Committee. The Rules Committee technically is a standing committee. It always operates during the legislative session, but they don't consider only some bills. They are the filter through which all bills must pass.
Aren't they the ones where they assign them to what committees they
And they decide which committee then will hear that bill. If they got a committee that will vote the way they like, they'll send it to that committee, regardless if it's. Say that again?
So it's basically like the favorites, maybe this is a wrong filter, but like the favorites of like the Speaker of the House or the, okay.
Yeah, you got to be
Whoever
in.
likes best,
You got to be
you're the
in
Rules
good with the
Committee, 'cause you-
Speaker or the President in order to be assigned to the Rules Committee. And you usually have to have quite a bit of experience. They don't put rookies on the Rules Committee, generally.
Sorry.
Okay, that's good. No, thank you. So each house has its own Rules Committee. If you ever want to go to a Rules Committee, you'll never know where it is. I just tell you, as soon as they adjourn for lunch, you race to the room where they hold the Rules Committee meeting. And they will start in just a couple minutes because they don't get to eat until they finish that meeting. It's lunchtime. They go to that meeting. And that meeting is held back in the back rooms where you can't get to. So what you have to do is you say, you know the meeting's happening. You want to go to the House Rules Committee meeting? You go to the guard at the door and you say, I want to go to the Rules Committee meeting. He says, all right, do you know the way? You walk in and you go to the Rules Committee meeting. So you can go, but it's not automatic and it's not out in the public area. But they'll let you in if you say you're going to that meeting. And so both houses have a Rules Committee, both the House and the Senate, and that's where they decide which standing committee to send the bill to for consideration. And now, if a bill were to pass, committee in the House and the floor debate, committee in the Senate and the floor debate, they may not agree. They may have made a few modifications, amendments to one bill that were not in the other one. Now the two bills are not the same. Constitution requires that they be exactly the same in order to pass. So sometimes it has to go through what we call concurrence. If it's a House bill and the Senate makes amendments to it, then they send it back to the House for concurrence. Do you guys agree with what the Senate said we should change? If they say yes, then you got it. It's ready to go to the governor. If they say no, then it has to go to what's the name of that committee? It's a special committee, 3 members from the House, 3 members from the Senate. They get together and they hammer out their differences and bring it back for both sides to vote on again. So it can be resolved if they're not exactly the same version. But ultimately you get to a point where everybody agrees and it goes to the governor. And in Utah, the governor has to sign it, or he can veto it. But if he doesn't veto it and he doesn't sign it, does it become a law or not? It does. It does. It becomes a law in Utah. In the federal government, it does not. It's called a pocket veto. But in Utah, if the governor doesn't sign it and if he doesn't veto it, after a certain amount of time, like 14 days, something, it becomes law. All right, any questions on this slide before we go on? Let's go to the next slide, please. Okay, the legislative website. If I were really swift, I would take you to this website and we would cruise around and I would show you all the cool stuff. I'm not that cool, not that technical. So instead, I just want you to be aware that these components are there on that website. I teach U.S. government to my students in high school at Liberty Hills Academy. I require that they memorize this web address. It's an easy one, le.utah.gov. I don't believe you're a good citizen if you don't know that. It's a really good website. Lots and lots of information is available there about bills and status and votes and members, and phone numbers and email addresses. I mean, you can find whatever you need about the legislature on this website. First of all, the legislators. You can find a picture and a little detailed personal information about every legislator. And I'm not kidding you, they got their phone number there. They have their legislative email address where you can communicate with them. Yes?
There should be an S after the HTTP part.
Oh, you're right, thank you. You're right, I'm missing an S. This must have been an old slide I made, and we put S's in there now.
Yeah, and I'll say this, I spend a lot of time on the legislative website looking at bills and that. You know, I have a lot of complaints with Utah government, but I think we do overall do a really good job of allowing access to information for bills. You can sign up to sign, get notifications of bills. You can, and even now they've added a new feature. We were having a meeting last night with Peter. Guess this is the part you missed at the Woodard Park.
Oh, okay.
Now they've actually color coded, so now the bills are in red of the language that they're adding. Before it was always just.
When you make an amendment, when they make an amendment to the bill,
Whatever the new bill is, it's just everything that the new language is.
oh, it shows what the old law was in blue letters, and wherever they change it, they put it into red letters so that you know what changes they're making to the current law. Yeah, that's high praise from Don Guyman to say that.
I will say, I have a lot of issues, but we do a pretty good job
Yeah.
on the website, although I think not every legislator puts their information up on. I have noticed.
Well,
Some of them are, so
some of them do try to dodge.
some of them
Yeah.
do, surprisingly.
By the way, since you mentioned it, the last one on the right column says Bill Tracker. You should sign into that. You can sign in with your email address and tell it, I want you to track certain bills for me. It'll do that. And then when you have a bill that you care about, a bill that troubles you or a bill that you really want to pass, you just tell it, track that bill. Every time the status of that bill in the process changes, you get an email. It'll tell you what's going on. When there's a vote, who's holding debate. Yes, Drew? Can you watch committee meetings? Yes. Yeah, not through the bill tracker, but on the legislative website, there's a place that you can watch committee meetings live or recorded. And you also can watch the floor debate on the floor of the House or the Senate at the time that your bill is being brought up. So yeah, you can watch all those from home. So you may say, oh, Pete, we're not going to spend 5 years at the legislature like you. Okay, don't. Stay home and do it from home. You can do that. Did you have a question, Brian?
Well, no, don't they allow you to also provide public comment?
I think they do. I've never done it that way. I've always done my comments in person, but I've heard that now that it's online, you can make your comments online. Public comments straight to the legislators in public. They only give you 1 or 2 minutes to do it, but if you've got something to say, you can say it. Okay, the detailed information about the legislators is up there, even what area they represent. You can find a map there that shows where the boundaries of their area, of their district are. Bills. Every bill is listed there. Historically, I think they go clear back to surely the early 1900s, maybe back to the 1800s. They've got a whole bunch of bills that have been considered and either passed or not passed by the legislature. For the last 15 or 20 years, you can find the voting record of every representative who voted on every bill that passed or did not pass. So if you want a record of how your representative voted, you can find it right there on that particular bill. Committee meetings. There are committee assignments posted on this page so that you can see exactly which representatives are assigned to the Natural Resources Committee, which are assigned to the Business and Labor Committee, which are assigned to the Government Operations Committee. If you want to know what committees they're on, you can find that under the committees. The Utah Code and the Constitution. In my government class, I require my kids to know the Utah State Constitution fairly well. Our source is this website. You click on the Constitution, it takes you to the Constitution. And you can go down, it's in outline form. You can read a paragraph at a time exactly how our government is organized in Utah according to the Constitution. Also, the whole Utah State Code is listed there. If you want to look at a law as it stands today, you can find it. It's right there. Now, you don't have to have a law library, a whole row of books on the wall. You just go to this website and look up what you want, and they have a search function. Be real specific with your search words, but if you have something you want to look up, what's the law on this? You can find it under Utah Code/Constitution. Okay, the Senate has its own section of the website where all the senators are shown, even so far as to show the seating chart. So if you go on in to watch from the gallery of the Senate floor and you want to know, well, where's my representative? There's so little down there. I just look at your map of the floor, and you can tell right where they are. Oh, sure enough, that's him sitting there. Oh yeah, he is bald, that's him. And you can tell from a distance, at least that he's bald. So the Senate and the House both have all this information, plus a bunch more information about how good the House is and how wonderful the Senate is. They'll tell you all of that too. A legislative guide. The legislative guide is not found on this website. But if you're clever, you can go to the Secretary of the House of Representatives. They got a little office up there outside the main floor of the House of Representatives. If you knock on the door and talk to the secretary and say, I'd like a copy of your legislative guide, they'll give you a little booklet. And in there, it's a paper booklet. And you can find pictures of every legislator, all the personal information about them, what committees they're on, other interesting information. So if you want in your hand a paper booklet, go to the Secretary of the House of Representatives and just ask for it. It's free. The calendar. If on this website you scroll down a little bit, you'll come to the calendar. There's two kinds of calendars on here. One is the monthly calendar, and you can click on a day and see what's scheduled that day. During this time of year, there's a few little meetings that happen. When the legislative session gets going, it's a long list of things that are happening that day. But the key is, here's a place you can go to see what's going on at the Capitol. Now that's the daily calendar, I guess I would call it. But there is also the reading calendar. I argue that the reading calendar is even more important. The reading calendar is produced by a process that starts with the Rules Committee. As soon as a bill hits the Rules Committee and they assign it to a committee, now it goes to a committee for consideration. That's kind of like a reading calendar, but not exactly. you can look up on the regular calendar what time and place every committee meeting is being held. So if you're up there, walk to that building, walk into that room number at that time, poof, 20 minutes late, there will be a committee meeting. They never start on time, ever. But there will be a committee meeting, and you can attend committee meetings live that way. But the reading calendar, I wanted to finish talking about that. The reading calendar is the way that the Speaker of the House on his side and the President of the Senate on his side decide what's the next bill up for debate here on the floor. Well, whatever bill came to the top of the reading calendar. If you can see that your bill got passed by committee and it was sent to the floor for debate and a vote, you don't know when it's going to be debated. It might not be till tomorrow. So you go to the reading calendar and you'll see, there's 40 bills ahead of mine. That won't be today. Or, gee, my bill has made it up to where there's only 2 bills left. I better hurry and get in there. They're going to be debating my bill soon, if you want to watch the debate on that bill. So the reading calendar tells you how soon a bill is up for debate on the floor. Now, there are several things that affect that, and you will feel lost if you don't know this next piece. Occasionally, the sponsor of the bill, who is required to speak to the bill, try to persuade everybody why they should vote for his bill, and then participate in the debate about the bill, he is going to have to be prepared for his debate. If he's not ready, if it came up on the calendar and he's not ready for the debate, he will make a motion to the President of the Speaker of the House, or if it's the Senate, the President of the Senate, and he'll say, okay, Don, now I've forgotten the term. What do they do with a bill when they stop it from proceeding on the calendar? They circle it. Thank you. They circle it. Yeah. He makes a motion to circle the bill. Those guys are always friendly to each other. If you want to circle your bill, you go right ahead. And that means we're not going to debate it till you're good and ready. And when you come back and say you're ready to debate your bill and present it, then you make a motion to uncircle it. But as long as it's circled, he might pop back in there at any minute and ask to have it uncircled and have the debate right then. That's kind of painful. Once it's circled, you don't really know how long it's going to be until the debate happens. Nope, he keeps his place at the top, and if there's nobody ahead of him, when they uncircle it, it's his turn.
But I think the legislator can move to circle a bill that's not theirs if they don't want to vote on it.
If he's not the sponsor, my experience has been they won't vote to circle it unless they know that he's got approval.
But I think they can.
Well, they can propose it, but the guys aren't so friendly if it's an unfriendly circle.
Yeah, but they can.
Yeah, they could. They can make any motion they want. They just may not get the vote. So circling a bill means it's paused in the reading calendar and is waiting to move forward when the sponsor is ready to move forward with it. So imagine the pandemonium. It's the last day of the session. They've been in session 45 days. Their bill hasn't been passed yet, the one they love so much. And they're hoping that it makes it up on the reading calendar on the last day of the session so they can have a debate and get the vote and maybe get it to pass in the last house. A lot of times they will make a motion to suspend the rules and not require 2 readings of the bill. And often the Speaker of the House will take a bill from the lower down the reading calendar and he says, I want that bill. He won't say it, he just does it. You won't hear it, but you just notice, how'd that bill get there? It hasn't been on the reading calendar. All of a sudden that bill is pulled up, the debate is held, the vote is done, and that bill passes. Might be 8 o'clock on that last night, but the Speaker makes sure that his pet bills make it for the last vote, just in time. So the reading calendar is a focus of attention during the whole session. but especially it's a focus and a worry at the very end. Any questions about the things that we find on the legislative website? I wish I could show you a bill. I don't think I have a slide to do that, but bills have specific parts. They're relatively easy to read. You don't have to be an attorney to understand what the bill is about. I would encourage you, read some bills. As a matter of fact, if you decide to read a bill and you decide that's a bad bill, or you decide that's a great bill, would you send me a little report? Or send Don Guyman a little report that says what you found on that bill? And we'll make sure it has a chance to be included in the Utah Grassroots Legislative Report Card at the end of the year. And we'll report how everybody voted on that important bill. Did you have a question?
I did. So the suspending the rules, is that constitutionally illegal?
If they vote 2/3 majority in that House to suspend rules, they can do it. They can't suspend the Constitution, but they can suspend their own rules. And
Well, they do suspend the Constitution.
well,
Figuratively.
they just don't talk about that. They just do it. Yeah. Good question. Can they suspend rules? Yeah. They're the legislature. They can with a large enough majority of a vote.
So if they circle a bill, does the reading calendar show it's been circled?
Yes. If you look at the reading calendar online, you'll see a little circle around the number. It's physically circled. And you know that bill is waiting for the sponsor to be ready to debate. Jen?
I have a quick comment. So if you have a day during legislative session that maybe you're off work or you have time, you can click on the calendar like the night before. They're supposed to post the bills that they're supposed to post it within 24 hours. You can click on it and just look at the bills and see if there's anything of interest or maybe you're watching it and oh my gosh, I gotta take the day off, but you can find them there. They're supposed to give 24 hours notice. And then show up and make a comment, something you may not know about.
Committee meetings are scheduled and announced in writing on a bulletin board at the Capitol and here at least 24 hours in advance. So you can find out what committees are meeting and their agenda for that meeting. So they post the agenda and you can see exactly which bills they're going to be talking about. And so if a bill that interests you is going to be talked about tomorrow, go on up and show your face and let them know that this is important. And, by the way, while you're there, ask your representative to meet with you.
So
Yes.
to that point, are there any parts of this process that are not open to the public?
Two parts. I think I may talk about it later, but let me tell you, since you asked, you cannot participate as the public in executive sessions. They are authorized to hold executive sessions where they discuss matters of personal sensitivity and privacy, ethics committee meetings and stuff like that, where they haven't drawn a conclusion yet, but they're discussing it. Those kinds of meetings are executive session and the public cannot attend those. Also, each party holds what they call caucus meetings. It's not the kind of caucus meetings we have in our neighborhoods, but instead, all the Republicans get together and hold a Republican caucus, and they talk strategy. How are we going to work these bills? And the Democrats get together and have their caucus meeting, and they don't always want other people coming in there. When I had been up there for a year or two, they began to let me wander into the caucus meetings, and most of the time they would let me sit there and watch while they did it. It's kind of like making sausage sometimes. You see the fighting between the Republicans and stuff. But yeah, those meetings you usually cannot attend. But if you look like you're pretty innocent and harmless, they may let you sit in the back. Of course, they're eating lunch, and you don't get to eat lunch while they have their caucus meeting. You got to sit there hungry and watch them eat. Okay. Yes, Jen?
Any recommendations on how to look innocent?
Yeah. No, you can't look innocent. Don't try it. You can't do it. Now, she probably could, but you couldn't. So, yeah, sometimes if you just act like you don't know what's going on, You go to the caucus meetings also are held in the back rooms, so you got to get past a guard. But if you tell the guard, they're having a caucus meeting here in 5 minutes, I'd like to go into the Republican caucus meeting. He may open the door for you, but what he may not do is if he doesn't open the door, if there's no guard there, it's just locked, usually someone will come out. While the door's still open, you just slide in there. And they won't throw you out. They may tell you, we're not having any outsiders in our caucus meeting today, but no problem, go back out. It's not like you're going to go to jail for trespassing. You're just trying to participate in the process. And so that can be done to attend a caucus meeting. Besides, in some cases, you might get one of the free lunches. Probably not usually. Okay, any other questions about this slide? Okay, let's go to the next slide. All right, how to read a bill. Again, I don't have a bill to show you, but if you wanted to see the infamous SB 54, it's a good example of things that you can see. You can go to the 2014 session. So you go to the legislative website, look up bills, click on bills, and then scroll down till you see which session you want to see. Choose 2014. And with 2014 session, be sure to pick the general session. Don't pick an extraordinary session or a veto session or a special session. Pick the general session. And then you look up one of our favorite senators, Kurt Bramble.
Who's gone this year.
Finally. Yeah, I wish his bill would go with him, but unfortunately it's passed. And you look up, SB 54 was proposed and passed in the year 2014 in that legislative session. So you have to know which year it was and what the number of the bill was. And it helps if you know who the sponsor was. It was Kurt Bramble was the sponsor of the bill. And in the House, there's another, Kurt Bramble's in the Senate. He's a senator. On the House side, there is a floor sponsor. And he's responsible for arguing and presenting and doing the debate over on his side of the Congress in the House. And that was? Dan McKay, another name that shall live in infamy. Dan McKay was the House sponsor of that bill. I was dumbfounded. When I looked at this bill and I looked at the voting record, there was just a handful of people disagreed with it. I mean, they're nuts.
Shows you how political influence. The Republican Party basically gave them a buy to pass SB 54 under the auspices it was going to save the caucus system. That one they were going to save the caucus system is by passage of SB 54. So the state party chairman at the time, James Evans, gave them a pass and said, we're not going to hold you accountable for passage for voting for this bill because you're going to save the caucus.
But James Evans, president of the Republican Party at the time, does not represent you now.
I just say that.
And if you hold people accountable now, I'd be proud of you. Let them know that we do not agree anymore. What were you saying, Don?
Yeah, the only problem was that and we didn't vote any. This just shows the importance. Then we gave them a pass and we didn't vote anyone out who voted for SB 54. That's what you need to do is if you have a bill that someone sponsors or what have you, you really need to work hard to get that person replaced.
Yeah.
That's the only teaching lesson.
Good. By the way, one thing I do want to tell you about reading a bill, when you go to the page and you get the bill up on the screen, there will be a menu of 3 buttons across the top. They're wide buttons. The first one is the text of the bill, and that's what you'll be looking at by default. The center one is the status. Status reveals a lot of information. It tells you all the steps that bill went through to get passed. How it passed the committee, it tells you who voted in favor of it on the committee, who voted for it on the floor. It tells you when it went over to the House, when it went to committee in the House, all those details of the passage of the bill and the vote total. Now, you might see the vote total, it was 22-4. And then another number after it, 22, 4, and 3. You say, well, what's the 3 about? It's 22 voted in favor of it, 4 voted against it, and 3 didn't have the courage to show up and vote. Or they'll say, oh, I'm sorry, I was out in the hall, I was busy talking to a constituent, and I just didn't know they were voting. Yeah, on SB 54, they knew when the vote was. Don't cut them any slack on that. On some bills, that does happen. So I want you to know about the status button in the middle, where you can read exactly the steps that bill went through, and you can see the vote. And if you want to know who did the votes, click on the vote number. Where it says 22, 4, and 3, click on that number, and it will show you the list of who they were. So you can find out exactly who voted for or against a particular bill. There is one other place on this website. It's kind of obscure. It's over toward the right side, but it tells you about a fiscal note. Many new laws cost money to implement, and the legislators want to know, how much is it going to cost? If I vote for this bill, how much do I have to pay to make that bill happen? And so the legislative fiscal analyst puts together a little report on every bill that has fiscal impact. And you can read that note. You can read what they say the impact will be. Of course, sometimes we disagree with the fiscal analyst and we think it's going to cost a lot more than they say, or they overlook some expense that will be there. But nonetheless, the fiscal note is something you might want to look at on bills to know.
Detailed, or does it just give an amount?
About in between. It's not down to the gnat's eyebrow, but it does list the kinds of expenses that are expected and how large they will be. All right, let's look at the next page. Oh, please.
But one of the things to look at fiscal, when you're looking at the fiscal notes, is all too often you'll hear all the time that this bill is not going to cost the citizens of the state of Utah any money. But you have to take a look and see, because it breaks out federal spending, so it'll have how much revenue. I think they use the word revenue, if memory serves correctly. And so they'll say this isn't going to cost us anything, because all the money is coming from the federal government, since the federal government's not $35 trillion or debt or whatever it is at the moment coming from us. So but that's always something to look at. Don't look at the bottom line, see where the breakdown of the...
So Don would probably argue that if you see that the federal government's paying the whole bill, that's even a bigger reason not to pass that bill.
And then eventually they're going to stop giving us the money, and then you got a program in place that people are used to, and then who's going to pay for it?
And then it does kick in, yeah. All right, we're ready for the next slide, please. Just in case you go up to the Capitol, I don't want you to get lost. Not everybody's been up there and knows their way around. So let me see if I can point to a couple of key places you need to know about. Can I make the red dot appear up there? You see that red dot?
Yep.
There's the Capitol building, the main Capitol building. Over here is what we call the Senate building. And over here is the House building. So this is on the west side of the Capitol complex. This is on the east side of the Capitol complex. And right next to the Senate building is this public parking lot. That's not nearly enough parking for the public that shows up during the legislative session. So you can also park clear up in this upper parking lot, or you can park along the street, or you can park up here along the street, or you can park up in the neighborhood if you want to walk clear down to the Capitol, or you can take the bus. So there is parking for you there. In the middle of this quad, I guess we would say, is just a fountain. Over on the north side of the complex used to be the Capitol office building, the state office building. They tore that down. I think they're still rebuilding it. So there's nothing there yet.
They got a brand new building though that's about finished there.
Oh, so they're getting close.
Side, I believe, when I drove by it the other day.
Yes, Jen,
Sorry to keep interrupting.
please.
So the last day that renovations were done on that old building, they announced that they were tearing it down, building a new one, and they want the granite on that one to match the Capitol, and they are importing it from Italy. Thank you, taxpayers.
Sheesh. Now you hurt my feelings. That's ugly. Now, if you're going to go up here and spend any time, if you're just going up for one meeting, eat before you go, eat when you get back home. But if you're going to stay for most of the day, or if you're anxious for a new dining experience, they still have a cafeteria there, don't they? I haven't been up there for a while. So if you go into the Senate building, on the main floor, on the north end, is a cafeteria. And you can buy lunch there. Go through the line, pick what you want, and you can go out and eat it in the dining room just over on this side. So the main floor of the Senate building is, they got a few meeting rooms there also for private groups to have meetings in, but mostly it's the cafeteria, and you can eat lunch there, get a drink and stuff. I think it opens about 10:30. No, they open in the morning for breakfast, even like 7:30 or 8. And they're open till 9:30, and then lunchtime until the end of the day, around 4:30. So other than that, there are committee rooms in many of these buildings. So if you're going to a committee meeting and it's room 210 in the Senate building, you go up to the second floor of the Senate building, you'll find room 210. Same thing in the main Capitol building. There are some committee rooms in the main Capitol building, typically on the upper levels. Sometimes they're in a fourth level. I think they have some committee meeting rooms. And over in the House, down in the basement, they have a couple of meeting rooms for committees, and up on the upper floors as well. So if you're looking for committee meetings, just pick the right building. The Senate on the east, the House on the west, and the main Capitol building. Any questions about the facilities and where everything is? Okay, let's go to the next slide, please. All right, I want you to be familiar slightly with how the timing of the legislative session goes, so that you don't get disappointed with what you encounter when you get there. At the beginning of the session, there will be hardly any floor time for the final vote on bills. The first few days, all the bills have to go to committee first. So you have a lot of time during the day scheduled in committee meetings. Little time for the floor of the House and the Senate to vote on anything. So if you're hoping to sit in the gallery and hear them debate bills, that won't happen much in the first few days. Maybe a couple of bills will be streamlined and go through. But the appropriations subcommittees happen during the first half of the legislative session. So you won't find appropriations subcommittees in the last week of the session. The Executive Appropriations Committee, yeah, that may be happening toward the end. They're trying to get it all together. Standing committees, a lot of committee meetings early in the session. If you go there the last week of the session, there are hardly any committee meetings happening. There may be one or two catch-up meetings for last-minute stuff, but they'll be on the floor at the end of the session. They're in committees the first part of the session. Rules Committee, as I mentioned, meets every day right as at the lunch break, and that's virtually every day. Toward the end of the session, the Rules Committee may not need to meet. They've sent all the bills to committees. They don't need to meet anymore. Executive Appropriations, they can start meeting early on, but they'll especially meet later. Caucus meetings, they kind of happen all the time. That's the strategy meetings of the parties. You might get to participate in a press conference. If you find out that someone has organized a press conference about a particular bill, it's going to pass, or it did pass, or everybody wants more support for it, they may call a press conference. And the press often will come. It's in one of the rooms downstairs, maybe in the governor's hall or some other room. you can go to those things. Don't be afraid of a press conference. If you support the bill, see if you can weasel in behind the speaker. Those guys standing behind the speaker, they're all big supporters of the bill. And the more people they have standing there, the more support it looks like they have. So go ahead. Weasel in behind the speaker and show your support. Now, don't weasel behind the speaker and then flip the bird to the camera. Don't do that. I'm innocent. I'm innocent. On Friday morning, if they still do it, the rural caucus meets down in the basement of the House building. Get in there about 7 o'clock, I think. Free breakfast. Bacon, eggs, all kinds of rural breakfast stuff. Get in there and take what you want because it's free to whoever shows up. And the rural caucuses pay for it. So that's not lunch, that's breakfast. I don't know of very many free lunches up there, but breakfasts. At least free breakfast on Friday. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, what should you wear when you're lobbying? I personally think I'm a shade underdressed right now. I like for men to wear a tie. If you wear a jacket, it shows you're serious and you take this seriously. If you show up in jeans and a t-shirt and with your cowboy hat on, you're in the rural caucus. You'll probably get breakfast on Friday. But if you're just to be a respected person who has something to say and you have influence in this world, you want to dress like it. And so I would suggest you look good when you go up there. Bring some materials with you. Bring a clipboard or a pad of paper that has a cardboard backing so you can take notes. Also, bring a folder or a binder. You're likely to get handouts, maybe agendas or documents about bills that you attend committee meetings on. You can get those. Well, you got to have a place to put them. So bring yourself a binder or a big folder. Bring your legislative guide or a paper that has a directory so that when you see legislators, you know who they are. It's nice to be able to call them by name. If you didn't meet them before, you don't know who they are or where they're from. And so this photo directory is a good thing to have. And of course, then bring your laptop, your tablet with Wi-Fi internet access. They have Wi-Fi up there that you can use, but you got to bring your own computer to have access to it. Any questions about what to bring, what to wear? Next slide, please. Okay, we do suggest that you contact your legislators. We really like that you know your senator and your representative. Be sure they know you and they know that you're their constituent so that gives you a little more influence. Probably good to know the difference between the Democrats and the Republicans. They sit on different sides of the House. There's only a little corner where the Democrats sit and the Republicans sit everywhere else. But in the little corner in the back, that's the Democrats. And of course, if you're the Speaker of the House, they're over on the left. We're on the right. That's where you get right and left from. You should probably also know who are the moderate members. If they're from Rose Park or from Cottonwood or Sandy or Bountiful, they may be a Republican, but they're probably moderate Republicans.
I think you're being nice using the word moderate.
I don't mean that nicely, but yeah. I'm just saying, if there are in-between people in the legislature, you could have some influence with them. Help them understand why it's in to their benefit and for their constituents to vote the way you want them to vote. But you got to know who they are first. It's good to know who the party leaders are. Do not expect Mike Schultz to drop everything and come chat with you. He's in the back rooms, or else he's up on the podium, and he's busy as a one-armed paper hanger. So he's got things to do. I like Greg Hughes. I like Greg Hughes a lot. When he was Speaker of the House, he would not give me the time of day. And I was up there every day. He never would talk to me. I was just a low-life citizen, and I had no money. So I didn't like it, but he was the Speaker of the House, so cut him some slack. And of course, for any bill that you care about, you need to know who the sponsor is. You probably aren't going to change the sponsor's mind. He sponsored the bill, so he's going to be in favor of it. So save your time and don't bother trying to persuade him. Save your breath. Okay, I made a mistake up there one time, and I got all huffy with one of the legislators, and I told him, you pass that bill and we're going to get you kicked out. We're going to run a primary on you and get you unelected. Guess what? That guy would never talk to me again. What do you know? Well, I should have known better. You don't go around threatening legislators. It's just not good form. Although, there was one day, I asked for an appointment with our representative. I was their constituent, and I brought 2 of my citizen lobbyist friends with me from Davis County. And we made an appointment. We went to her office, and we said to her, we've noticed that you're voting very moderately. You should be a good Republican. We're much more conservative than that. If you keep that up, we're going to have to run against you. And 3 of us standing there looking like we could run against her. And I was on the Davis School Board, and I might have run against her. All of a sudden, the rest of that legislative session, she was one of the most conservative voters in the whole legislature. Yes?
I'm assuming that,
Julie Fisher.
yeah, Julie Fisher.
Yeah,
Can
yeah.
I just share, because I give this, they call it the Julie Fisher effect. Part of that.
Yeah.
She was like, on her grassroots report, she used to be ranked like in the 50s. And then you guys started having your 9/12 group and meeting with her like you did and kind of letting her know. I think the next year she finished 12th, went from being in the 50s, finished 12th. The next year she finished 3rd. She beat Kurt Oda, who was a really good legislator. I gave him a hard time because I think he was number 4 and she was number 3. It's amazing that but then she got a job in the.
Well, first of all, my advice is don't make wild threats against legislators. But if you're serious that you really do need to replace them, if they can't do better than they're doing, give them a chance to show that they can do better. Don't wait till the end of the session. It can have influence. So much influence that the governor said, I don't know if we want somebody that conservative in our legislature, but she would be a great cultural affairs secretary for the governor. So he appointed her, which yanked her out of the legislature. No more conservative voting for us, and away she went. So sometimes it works, but be careful with that. You can make enemies. Also, if you're speaking to a representative about a matter, you don't want to have them close the door on all discussions with your whole group. If Don goes up there and he smokes this one representative, that representative may not to speak to anybody from Davis County Conservatives ever again. It can hurt all of us, so we don't want that to happen. We want them still to give us the credit that we as a group are due. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, you may get to go to committee meetings online or in person, and here's what I recommend that you do. I think you can be very influential in committee meetings. Citizens don't have a say with legislators more than when they're sitting in a committee meeting. They have a lot of influence because I had no idea. With every bill that is considered before a committee, the chair of the committee is obligated by rule, before they vote, they have to ask, is there anyone from the public that would like to speak on this issue? Well, as soon as they say that, your arm shoots up. If that's a bill you need to talk about, your arm shoots up, and they will say, please come to the microphone. And you get to go up to the witness's chair and speak. They'll give you 1 or 2 minutes to speak. Now, if you're doing it online, you gotta, I don't know what the process is, but you can ask to speak on the bill, and they'll let you. And so you'll do it from home, but at least you get to speak. So if you're going up there in person, I recommend that you sit toward the front of the room. If you're thinking you might want to speak on a bill, if you're way at the back, there's a chance that they'll conveniently not see your hand. Or they'll see somebody else first and they'll say, well, we can only take 4 speakers, so we'll take you, and you. And you in the back, sorry, you're too late. So come sit near the front if you're going to want to speak. Get near the aisle so that you can get out and get up to the microphone. And then you'll get a chance to say your piece. I do recommend that if you do get to speak, don't just be passionate. That alone probably won't win you many votes. But I got to tell you about one time I spoke in committee. It was an education committee meeting or something, and they were talking about a bill to restrict all that junk food in the vending machines at the schools. And so they wanted all healthy food and stuff in all the vending machines. And I got up, I got to speak, and I went up to the microphone and I said to them, I'm a retired Army officer. During my time in the Army, I got to serve in Berlin, behind the Iron Curtain. And I tell you, those Soviet commissars got nothing on you if you vote for this bill, because you're trying to tell us what we can and can't eat. What kind of communism is this? And then I sat down. And the bill died. Right there in committee, it died. No one dared to vote for it because of the ridiculous stance I had taken. They waited until next year, and then they passed the bill. But I wasn't there the next year, so I missed my chance. So you can have a lot of influence in a committee meeting, but you don't want to burn all your bridges. I had a real nice senator from South Weber. I can't remember his name, but he had been a former stake president. He was a nice guy, except that I showed up at those education committee meetings where he was the chairman of the committee so many times because I was on the school board. He didn't like hearing from me anymore. So he made a point to let me know, Peter Cannon, we really don't need you here. That's about how he said it. Are you kidding me? You don't need a citizen to tell you how the citizens want you to vote. You don't need another elected official from a school board to tell the education committee how they should act. All right, I got it. Now he's a jerk in my mind. But I tried to restrain myself. But as you get to the end of your remarks, try not to be as emotional as me and make your request clear. Make it clear, please do not vote for this bill, or please do vote for this bill. This is why I ask for your support. And then you're done. Then you can go back to your seat and you're finished testifying on that bill. Any questions about committee meetings? By the way, you still can carry a concealed weapon right into a committee meeting. You can carry a concealed weapon right into the gallery, looking down on the floor. Don't recommend you use it, but you don't have to go through a metal detector. You don't have to be searched. It's not the TSA, it's not the federal government. So feel free to take whatever security measures with you you know are appropriate. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, if you want to go up in the gallery and watch what's going on, you may want to follow the proceedings there. First, watch the reading calendar so you'll know what's going on. They have a big screen in the Senate that you can look at, but sometimes you need to know more than that. So if you can take your laptop or your tablet with you and follow the reading calendar, you can look up other information while you're at it. If you're just looking at their screen, you just see the next 8 bills that are coming up to be discussed, and you know which one they're talking about now, but that's really all you can look up. So watch the reading calendar, then you'll see when your bill is coming up. I suggest there are so many bills that come before the legislature. Don't wear yourself out trying to cover all of them. Pick a few bills, 4 or 5, maybe 10 if you're really ambitious, and follow them and try to have a little influence with them. But you can burn yourself out pretty fast. And they may not listen to you like me. They're sick and tired of hearing me testify in education committee meetings. So pick your battles, pick the good ones, and try to have as much influence as you can. By watching the reading calendar, you can begin to kind of estimate how soon your bill is going to be up for debate and a vote on the floor. If you want to influence some legislators, plan 3 or 4 bills before your bill comes up to the top. When your bill is in 3rd or 4th position, start sending text messages. Start sending notes. Write on the green notes for the House of Representatives, the blue notes for the Senate, and ask the guards to send them in to those guys. They'll do that. They get a blank form you can pick up there, and you write your note on there, just a sentence or two. Please support such and such a bill. I'm your constituent, or I'm not your constituent, but here's why it's a good idea. And they'll get that laying right on their desk a few minutes before the debate happens. So when the debate happens, they're going to have a sense if there's a bunch of people out there in the halls wanting them to vote for or against a particular bill. Brian, do you know whether there's any way to send notes in the online method, or is that just text messages? Okay. Well, you can always text them because their phone number, most of them, is on the legislative website. Send them a text message. They honestly try to read their text message.
You can't take text on the number that you put up there.
Oh, is that right? Okay. Well, then the other alternative is get to know your representative. Ask them, where can I text you? Because I need to send you text messages sometimes. And they'll probably give it to you. Yeah.
Some of the guards have information on who the interns are, the little runners of the messages. So you can ask the guards too, hey, who can I text? Who's his intern? And the interns can get them.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, so you could text, because every representative and every senator has one intern. And if you can text the intern, then the intern can get messages to your representative. Thank you. So by sending those notes and messages in at strategic times, they will have you fresh on their mind as they vote on a particular bill on the floor. Now, there is a way that you can talk to these guys out in the hall. Probably not if they're senators. They probably won't talk to you in the hall. What you do with them, when they take a recess for lunch, you stand outside the door and you follow them. If they come out the wrong door, you got them. Just go up to them and talk to them. That's why you need the picture book so that you know what they look like and you can track the right person. But out in the hall, outside the House of Representatives, is called the lobby. And that's where lobbyists get their name from. They hang out there like a pack of wolves, and they're waiting for any legislator to come out and talk with them. And if it's somebody that has a lot of money, they'll come out and talk to them. If you send a note in, they may or may not talk to you unless the note says, I'm your constituent. And if you are their constituent, they'll know you. And they'll try, when they get a chance, to break away for a minute and talk to you about what you want.
That's why it's sometimes good to put your address even when you email or text.
Yes.
So then they know specifically that I'm Don Guyman, I live at 1641 North 600 West and West Dallas.
And they say, oh, that's an address in my district.
Always remember, the thing they fear most is losing their election.
Yeah.
That's the most guiding principle.
Yeah, really true. Really true. So don't be shy. You can talk to them. And I think I've mentioned this before already tonight. Oh, please.
If you text them, and it might not be any specific day, you can ask to go and sit on the floor with them on the floor day.
You know,
It's a really good way to get to talk into their representative.
another good way to make sure you get on the floor is bring an elementary school kid with you. If you bring your son, grandchild with you, and you ask, can we come sit on the floor with you? Yeah, that's big money for them. So, and you only get to sit there for a little while, right? You don't get to sit there the whole day. One section, couple of hours. Okay, good.
Sorry, so you said you contact them a few days before and say, I'd like to sit on the floor with you?
Or you can even ask them, you know, maybe session start, during the week, say, today,
If ever by chance,
yes, with representatives and senators, they'll bring you.
yeah, and if ever you have a day that you're bringing a class of school kids or a group of family members all together up there for a special visit to the Capitol, if you let your legislator know ahead of time, he'll tell you a time and a place he'll come meet you and make it look like he's giving you a little tour so that you feel real good about that. Kind of cool. Okay, any other questions on this slide? Let's go to the next slide. Okay, where can citizen lobbyists be helpful? If you've done this a little bit, you might be invited to help to draft some legislation. If a legislator knows that you care, especially if there's a particular issue that you care about, and he's going to draft some legislation, he may call you to a little work session. What do you want included in this bill? How do you think we should do this? You may get invited to do that. Of course, in committee meetings, you can help. In caucus meetings, press conferences, in the lobby, you might even get to meet with the governor. If you ask, and if you have a group of people that are interested in a particular bill, especially when it's time for him to start signing bills, you might persuade the chief of staff of the governor to let you in to talk with the governor. At least Gary Herbert, I got to give him credit for one thing. He was willing to listen to all sides. I didn't want him to listen to those other sides, but he at least listened to our side a few times. Didn't mean he would make a decision for us, but at least he would listen. So you might get a chance to meet with the governor and give him your opinion. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so these are the things that citizen lobbyists are really needed for. Attending at the Capitol is a great idea. Online, you also have some influence. One of the hardest things of all to do is to read any number of bills. There's likely to be 1,500 bills introduced this year. They won't all pass. Who can read 1,500 new pieces of law? There's no one person. Well, luckily they don't even get to that many.
Last few years though, they passed like 750 bills or so.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, the majority of those bills, can't think of them right off the head, all passed in the final days of the legislative session. I believe there was 1 year, and check me on this, but I think 25% of the bills all passed on the final day.
So you have time to let them know how you feel about a bill before that last week. It's not like you have to tell them during the last week. You can tell them 2-3 weeks before. Hey, when this bill comes up, remember, it's a snake in the grass. Don't you vote for it. Or remember, that's our only hope. Please vote for it. Yes?
So you got 24 hours before the committee meeting. How do you find out about all these bills before then?
They're out there now. They're being posted online right now. There are several hundred bills already listed that will go to committee within the first few days of the start of the session. And so you can start to read now.
I still don't know where on the website to look for that.
Yeah, you go to le.utah.gov, and there you're going to click on bills. And it'll ask you which session. You say 2025 general session, and it'll show you all the bills. It'll show you the Senate bills. If you want a Senate bill, it'll show you House bills. You can search for bills by who the sponsor is, if you know who the sponsor is.
So they're
You can,
already numbered?
yeah, once they get posted there, they're numbered. And you can even search by the topic, usually a one-word topic like education or.
So if you go to that le.utah.gov on the front page, it says number of bills right there. You click on that, and the bills.
Yeah.
They have about 250 bills so far, I think.
So when I say reading bills, we would love all of you to help us read bills. Just go look at some that strike your fancy. If you want to look at particular topics or the bills sponsored by your representative or whatever. When you run across a really cool bill, one that would make a huge difference, let Don Guyman or me know. Send us a quick email or text or something, and we will help keep track of that with you. Because it's hard for us to know what all the dangerous bills are and why, or the good bills and why. You don't have to write a long story. I mean, in a quarter of a page, you could give us enough information to give us the heads up. That'd be great. So if you're interested in doing that, reading bills and tracking legislation so that we know when it's going to go to the Senate committee and when it's going to have a hearing on the floor of the House. If you'd like, be a reporter, keep a blog, send out videos, email, letters to the editor. Does anybody read a newspaper anymore? Write an article for me, the editor-in-chief of the Davis Correspondence, our monthly newsletter. We'll post stuff in there for you. You can also write fact sheets based on constitutionally conservative values. What does a fact sheet do? This is one of the powerful things that paid lobbyists accomplish. They write a well-written fact sheet that lists all the facts, the pros and cons, the reasons why a bill is good or bad, and they hand it to the legislator. They say, here's your talking points. Sometimes legislators like that. They're going to probably debate in the committee or on the floor that particular bill. If you've given them good ammunition, they'll use it. And they'll say, wow, I got some really good ammunition from those people. Let's do that again. So writing fact sheets is really helpful. And of course, you guys know other people, so mobilize other supporters for priority legislation. Have you ever gotten an email, it might have come from the Eagle Forum, and they say, tomorrow's the day. We got the committee hearing on such and such a bill. At this time, in this room, we want to pack the house. Yeah, we're gathering forces to make a show of force on a really crucial bill, either for or against, whichever it is. But sometimes, not a lot, but once in a while, we can gather our forces together and make a difference. So mobilizing supporters for priority legislation is good. And there are a number of other groups that do things like this. Jen Brown runs an impact group. Eagle Forum runs a group. What other groups are there? The Libertas Institute does some lobbying. What? United Women's Forum, yeah. Yep. Good.
Davis County Conservatives.
Davis County Conservatives, we hope we'll have a few people can go up there a few times during the session.
Can I say one thing on email?
Please.
I think a good idea is make sure you put in the subject, because we might not have time to read, but just put the bill number, but put what the bill's about, because I've had people say, I can't read them because they've got 1,500 bills. So if I say, I want SB 79, they might not know what it's about. But so just put like SB 79, protection schools or something, or whatever, and then I would use bullet points, because they don't really, because they're getting so many emails, but just quick bullet points so they can read. Half the time it's an intern that will read it. We'll read it anyway, but just.
Very good idea, yeah. Yeah, be sure that you, in the heading of an email, the subject of an email, put the most essential information. No on HB 44, throwing children in the oven. Vote no on that. So that way, at least if all they read is the subject, at least they got your main message. Then you got bullet points after that if they have time to read them. Yes, please.
When you do it, try to be specific and say things in your own words. Don't try to piggyback onto some boilerplate thing that 10,000 people are doing. Because honestly, I've heard from legislature, people in the legislature saying, hey, I get these, chain mail things from somebody, and it's like, I'm not reading those things just because there's 10,000 of them come in and they all just basically go to their spam bucket.
Yeah, good point.
I think that would have some impact because if 10,000 people took the opportunity to forward it, they at least had an opinion.
You get that much.
But
You do get that much. The thing that seems to me to be most effective in making up their mind is good ideas, good reasons. If you can give them really good rationale, it's logical, persuasive, heartfelt, they probably will be persuaded too. And even if you're the only one saying it. Anything else? Okay, let's look at the next slide, please. That's it? Wow, we made it. You thought I was never going to quit. I didn't know when I would quit. All right, any broad questions? Anything else you'd like to know about dealing with the legislature up at the Capitol? By the way, these techniques that work at the Capitol with the legislature, they all also work with the school board. The Davis School Board, the State Board of Education. You can attend State Board of Education meetings. You can watch them make bad decisions. And they can see your face in person when you grimace at that. They even have little committee meetings at the state board meetings. You can go into their committee meetings where they talk nitty-gritty on specific topics, and you may or may not get a chance to speak there. But I was going to say, state school board, Davis School Board, you can have a say. And of course, city council meetings and county commission meetings, those are all places that you're welcome also. The laws require that they allow us to participate in those public meetings. Any other questions? Yes, please.
Or just a comment, I guess. A lot of the legislature members, they have social media, whether it be X or Facebook or whatever. Sometimes if you engage with them through that on a more personal basis, if they're like, oh, I like your post or whatever, then they're like, oh, I know this individual. Or if you get to know them as they're running for office or something like that, and you have that relationship before you're going and doing this. I mean, it's a little late for this particular session, but if you work that way, I think that helps a lot, because then they kind of look at you and say, oh, well, this person has influence. There's somebody I know because I've engaged with him either on social media or in some other context. So you might be more likely to at least get a little bit of a hearing if something's important.
Very good idea. I love that. And honestly, you'd be surprised. These guys can't know everything. They often are just befuddled with how to vote on a lot of the bills. They have no idea. They haven't read the whole thing. They've heard their buddies tell them they should vote for it, and some others tell them they shouldn't. They don't really know. So if they know you and you say not to vote or to vote, they might just toss a coin and say, I'll go with him. He's my friend.
I once was critical, did a position on grassroots against a bill, and someone was surprised. Well, I was following one of their buddy legislators who voted for the bill, so that's the reason I voted for it. I remember them telling me that, and they hadn't read it, but because their buddy was voting for it, they figured that was a good bill, and they were surprised we were saying that was a bad bill.
Yeah. Yeah. So all right. Well, you have a chance to have some influence. You might have a lot more influence than you ever thought you had. Way more influence than just voting. And so this is a good way to be a good citizen. Hey, thank you guys for participating tonight, listening to me, being here. You made me feel real good.
Once again, thank you, Peter, for doing that. Great presentation. Once again, I want to thank the Faith Baptist Church for hosting us and the big help they were. Plan on another meeting on the fourth Thursday. I was hoping to get the legislators here, but I was informed that's the night of the State of the State address by the governor. I probably won't attend. And so nevertheless, but thank you once again for coming tonight. Just if you just make sure you clean up around your area and tell your friends, and we'll be here the fourth Thursday of next month, the fourth Thursday, January 23rd. So thank you.